Hi everyone, BC Richfield here on behalf of BrightFunded. Let's take a look at the week ahead. So let's start by taking a look at the red folder news for the week. So for those of you that don't know, my focus is typically on the US markets, but we can see today we've had manufacturing, PMI, ISM manufacturing as well in the US. Tomorrow we've got JOLTS job openings to look forward to as well as Wednesday we see news in the form of ISM services PMI. Thursday we've got unemployment claims, and Friday as well we see average hourly earnings month on month, non-farm employment change and unemployment rate. But please do also be aware, especially across FX markets, that we have news affecting CHF, AUD, CAD, and obviously the euro as well. Okay, everyone, so we're going to start today by looking at Bitcoin. Now, we can see the previous all-time high set back in here, November 21, is the level that's currently capping the market after price deviated above, got back below. We saw that sell off down to the gap we targeted down here. Now we saw that nice bullish reaction, keeping market structure intact and ultimately retaining our bullish bias. Still, however, last week, if we zoom in, we can see price failed to close back above this level, but I do believe that we'll be looking for targets in the form of liquidity above this high here, first of all at 72,607.67, and then ultimately this swing high above it at 73,666.64. Now, if we drop this down onto the daily, one of the areas we were looking at last week was this fair value gap. Now, we can see as we draw the gap along here, right? Funny how you can see price interacting with our previous all-time high as well, how you get a lot of price action consolidation around it. We saw it here and also here. But this gap here, the breakdown from this wasn't convincing. So the plan is when we're going to look to violate these gaps, that means we're looking for a close below it showing weakness. Then we look to target the swing lows and so on and so forth down towards the following gaps. Now, this really wasn't convincing to me. It was a very, very shallow close. And then the long downside wick got bought up quite quickly, getting back within this area here when we then closed above the body of the previous day's candle. Expectation of expansion towards these next highs is what we're looking for. So as long as we hold this area, then I'm retaining a bullish bias on Bitcoin. Now, moving across to Ethereum, and we can see the weekly close last week after that extremely bullish week commencing Monday, May the 20th. We then saw this gap, which has now been confirmed on this close. These gaps are really, really good areas to target for price to pull back to, find some bids, and then ultimately we're looking for an attack on the high over here at 4,098. We do also need to be aware, however, that we've got a swing high forming over here, but we do need this weekly close. So at the moment, my expectation is for price to maybe pull back a little bit to here, probably targeting the prior week's low where we'll see a lot of liquidity resting, for price to dip into this and then get bought up quite quickly back to the highs. So looking at this on the daily, again, similar to Bitcoin, we can see this consolidation that's been happening here. Last thing we did is take liquidity above this high, leaving this one in its place. So at the moment, we can see that price is looking a little bit heavy, but it's very, very difficult. We've taken out liquidity resting above the weekend's highs. So a little dip down further, aligning with our weekly bias before we go long here would really make sense to me. However, as we know, especially with cryptocurrency, if the conditions are correct, if the risk markets are aligned and this starts to run hot, then really, really clean long setups would be considered from here as well. But I would like to see us close above the body of this down close candle here. So now moving on to FX, and our focus is going to be on Euro USD and Euro JPY. But starting with Euro USD, we can see how he came out, and this is the level for me that's currently capping the market at 1.08850. Okay, it was our previous swing higher. Price failed to close above it. We saw this initial rejection, and then we set this fair value gap. Now, we've seen price come in and take liquidity below the prior week's low here, or 2 weeks back, and then have that nice expansion. Now, what's interesting here as well is we can see that this last week took liquidity below the prior week's low and above the prior week's high. So we actually favor continuation coming into this week, and we can see that we've got that to start off. I do want to see a weekly close above this level, and then I think we can really start making a move towards 1.09812. So now looking at this on a daily basis, then what are we looking for? Well, one thing that I do like here is we can see we had this very, very thin gap that we're almost in the process here, or we are in the process here, sorry, of closing above. When we do, if we do, then this would become an inverted fair value gap, very, very similar to what we saw back here on the weekly. Now, we expect these areas to offer support, but obviously until it closes, we have to respect the fact that this is still a bearish gap. Now, the amount of displacement and the close and the volume that we've seen kind of go into this to pull it above here makes me feel quite confident that we're seeking out prior highs. So I would be looking at the swing high here and then the one just above it here, which is about 1.08951, sorry. So that's what I'll be looking for on Euro USD. Obviously, you know, we've swept the lows here. We're still bullish overall. So I think we do make a move higher. But once again, if we start coming back down and closing below this, then I think price could be looking for liquidity below the prior swing low. Moving on to USD JPY. And what was interesting here last week, we were looking at this mother bar and inside bar, which together make up the inside bar pattern. That's where you have the larger candle here, but the secondary candle closes within its range. So these form two types of range. Now, if we see a strong close or a big body close above a range high or below a range low, the expectation is for continuation. Now, we could still see this as a deviation. So if we come and close below this, the inside bar high, or IBH as you'll see it on this chart, then I do think that we would make a move towards the inside bar low and eventually the mother bar low as well. So to give that a little bit more context on the daily, we can see that we've had the day open here quite weak. Now, we've taken liquidity below this swing low here. So how this candle closes will make a big difference. Also, by closing below this, you know, we would have a change in state of delivery, meaning that it would kind of add a little bit of fuel to the bearish prediction that we have there. Now, remembering as we look at the market structure here, higher, 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 low, higher, higher, this could very well just be a corrective move down to this kind of area here, where we obviously saw this fair value gap inversion. We've got this order block sitting here as well. So while we're there, I'm still going to be cautious on this, and intraday be happy to trade this either way. Now, as we move on to gold, gold has kind of been consolidating this weekly range, held up by this fair value gap and capped by this previous high here at 2,431.47. Again, failure to close above this level, and then this bearish engulfing candle gave us the indication we were looking to move lower. Now, we didn't have that much of a large move down, but we did take liquidity below the low. Now, this week started by taking liquidity below the prior week's low, and now we're seeing this expansion. While this is the case, obviously we need to wait for the weekly candle to close before we get any confirmation on that. But from a liquidity standpoint, it started the week looking strong with a long downside wick. So we're going to move to the daily and see if we get any more context. So we can see this capping the downside, all right, and now we can see we've got this swing high above us over here. So in terms of intraday or short-term trades, I'd be looking to target this up here at 2,359.65. Now, again, any close below this and a body close above this body here as well would give me even more conviction to move higher. But any close below this level here, and I think we start targeting the swing lows down here around 2,200, excuse me, 2,276.85. So moving on to our last asset here, we're going to take a look at the NASDAQ. Now, NASDAQ obviously has been super bullish here. We've seen great expansion above this high, and this is where we're looking at how price moves through these levels. The close of this candle, again, closing a body above this, then confirm this gap below, which gives an excellent opportunity for price to pull back into this and see if the buyers really do step in here, okay? Because this should be a good liquidity pool for price to move higher. A close below this level again, and my expectation would be that we come down for these thinner gaps here and possibly all the way down towards the swing low down here, which is sat down at 17,113.25. So looking at the daily to get a little bit more of a granular look, this is a really, really strong candle here on Friday. We purged low, we filled and rebalanced these gaps here, and then price got bought up aggressively. Quite a long nose for a pin bar, right? But you can see not much in the body, but there was a lot of bearish sell pressure then that got bought up pretty quickly. This obviously daily candle is very new at the moment, but what's of interest is how we can see prices drawn up into this bearish gap above us, and that's currently what's capping price. So while we're still delivering from this and we've set this low, I'd want to see a close above this to start chasing out the highs again, or maybe we start to get some continuation if we fail to get, if we fail to close above this, sorry, we get some continuation back to the downside. Okay, so please do remember the red folder news that we shared earlier as well, because that will have an effect on the markets, whether you're trading equities or forex, and obviously that will also play into cryptocurrency. But until next week, we look forward to seeing you over at BrightFunded. So that concludes our weekly outlook. Wishing you all a great and prosperous week ahead, and we look forward to seeing you join us soon over at BrightFunded.